Ili Chiara. Chiara. Ilia Chiara. Chiara. Chiara.
Ilia?
Chiara. Chiara. Ilia?
It's Romanian.
Ilia Chiara. Ilia Chiara.
Ilia Chiara. Okay.
Chiara.
Chiara. Ilia Chiara.
Chiara. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. How much more time we got? Okay, thank you.
The Wellness Show, episode number 402.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more.
Sounds like it.
Welcome to The Wellness Show on health, wealth, and enlightenment. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, and my co-host, Laura Cool, and we're here to answer all your questions on dowsing, energy healing, what's up in your life, and what's up on planet Earth in these extraordinary times of personal and planetary transformation. So this is your opportunity to phone in during the show over this hour and receive a clearing, because today is Personal Clearing Tuesday. All clearings will be done on this show, so if you put any comments or requests in any one of the places that you're able to comment, which is in the Wellness Show, the Wellness Academy, any of the pages that give you an opportunity to comment on Personal Clearing Tuesday, and you have requested a clearing, we'll be dealing with it on the show. So do you want some help to let go, clear, and transmute all trauma, unresolved emotions, toxic emotions, core fractures, or unfinished business from this life, past life, or future lives, or from your matriarchal or patriarchal lineages, from family of origin, soul family, or star family, or your inner child? Please write out a clearing statement so we can help you get the wording right. So yeah, we do the clearing here on the show on behalf of you, but we really want you to know how to do this for yourself. Because if you know how to clear yourself, you can clear your loved ones and your family of origin, and you can also then clear clients if you have clients as well. So we want to teach you how to do this for yourself. So without further ado, and with a pendulum, let's just do that, okay?
We're going to do that this morning already? All right, let's do it.
We're going to do it right out of the gate. So here you go. So this is Personal Clearing Tuesday, and it goes like this. You have a pendulum, or use your index finger, or any weight on the end of a string. You're spinning it counterclockwise to clear, right? Like creating a hurricane that goes across the face of the earth, sucking up everything and in its path. So you want to clear your aura by creating a vortex of energy, like a vacuum that's pulling everything out, like a big vacuum cleaner. Okay, so it goes like this. I, Tyson Bannigan, in my I Am presence, on behalf of everybody on this call now, or listening to this call in the future, with the assistance of Divine Mother, Divine Father, and Creator God of all that is, undertake a clearing to remove any and all trauma, core fractures, toxic emotions, unresolved conflict from any and all sources, known or unknown, any unfinished business. And we translate it throughout all timelines, past, present, and future. And we undertake this clearing throughout the matriarchal and patriarchal lineages, soul family, star family, and family of origin. And we clear it all the way through from the time of your conception as a soul entity. And then you say, I declare it so be it. It is done. Thank you. So that's the clearing. And remember, once you clear, you create a vacuum. And with every vacuum, there's energy wants to rush in to fill the vacuum, because nature abhors a vacuum. So you want to then do an installation. So an installation is you're spinning the pendulum clockwise, or you're having the intention of bringing energy down through your crown chakra, and you're feeling that void with new divine energy, which would be, I hereby declare in my I am presence that I am, going clockwise, I am a sovereign human being. I am loved by God, always have been and always will be. I'm in the right place at the right time for the next miracle to occur in my life. Synchronicity is the pathway to my future, and I'm here to help liberate humanity from by helping them discover their true nature and to remember their path home to the light. And I declare it so, so be it. It is done. Thank you.
That was
So
beautiful.
that's a good one. I
That
like
was
that.
a really good one.
That was a good one. Yeah.
You did good.
The light shining down through here. Yeah, it reminds me of that beautiful picture I saw on Facebook with a shaft of light. I don't know. I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe I looked like it was a mile or larger from the side of Mount Shasta. This purple light coming down on the planet, and I have to say, when I allow myself to be still, which is the topic today, is silence, the power of silence. That I get flooded by that purple light. So I'm pretty excited by that, because Mount Shasta and the purple light is the home of Saint Germain. So I remember being on the side of Mount Shasta. I did go there. Well, I had a brand new son. He was a little baby. He was still breastfeeding. And we were invited to go to Mount Shasta. And I was learning to do a breathing technique then. I think I was at something like 8 in, hold 8, 8 out, hold 8, 8 in, hold 8, 8 out, hold 8. And I'd been doing that for over a year. And I was with some Rosicrucians, and we went to a very sacred place called Widow's Well. This is where the First Nations would gather, with a spring coming out of the side of Mount Shasta. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to have this experience. I knew that there was an interdimensional portal to Agatha, or the inner world, right? So I want to have that experience. So I took some water, and I don't know, I think I took a sleeping bag, and so I climbed the mountain, and then slept on the mountain overnight, and waiting for Saint Germain to tap me on the water, on the shoulder, wake me up, and take me into the inner kingdom. But it didn't happen that way. But when I did wake up, it was like I was talking to, I don't know, I think there's maybe 4, it's hard to know, 5 or 6 beings, and they're right off the edge of the cliff. They were hovering in the air. I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was like a download. And at the same time, the sun was coming up, and it was just like a ring of fire on the horizon of a volcano. You could almost see it like 180 degrees lit up, like the rim was on fire. It was just fire everywhere. It was absolutely incredible. So that was my introduction to Saint Germain and to that mountain. And then I went to a passion play. There's always a passion play, at least there was before COVID-19, about the life of Christ, which is done there by the I Am organization. So I went to that too. So it was a very powerful time. Anyway, the topic today is the power of silence, because it's only in the silence, only in the stillness, that you can have the experience of being one with source consciousness, or the God of, the God of your choice, or the one that you call the all-powerful being, or however you want to word that. We were talking about that the other night. Like, Laura, what do you do? Did you just say God, or how do you include everybody? We were just talking about this last night, and it was a Christian lady, and she was talking about how she wants to say what it is that she does, but she wants to include other people. So people were coming with the God of your choice was a way of doing it, or some people use source, some people talk about creator. If you are, First Nations, you talk about Great Spirit. So it's interesting, how do you be inclusive to include everybody's concept of God or source?
God. I always use God.
It's God, yeah.
Yeah. When I do my readings, I'll ask people, what do they believe in God, and if so, what do they call it? And then I explain why I use God, because I was raised Christian Methodist, and it's just very comfortable for me, and so that's what I do. I just do what's comfortable for me. I don't try and make other people comfortable or not or uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
That's what I believe, and God is what I believe. So
Yeah, and I think it's important to let everybody know on this call that we are including all concepts of divinity, whether it be
absolutely,
Source, Buddha,
there,
Christ, Muhammad, all those paths are important to me.
there's
Unfortunately, I've had the
Hebrew.
opportunity. There you are. I've had the opportunity to pretty well be in every culture and be
Mm-hmm.
able to study it. And I'm not saying in any huge extent, but Taoism, Buddhism. So in other words, I've taken my Bodhisattva vows. I've been taking my, many, and Taoism the same. I've taken vows there. Have a Buddhist name. Uh, you know,
Yeah,
I've done my Christian stuff. Anyway, and
I
I've
like
also worked
study
in
other.
Pakistan, so I know a bit about the Quran and
Yeah.
and the faith of Islam. Anyway, we digress. What we're going to be talking about is silence, the power of silence. And of
Well, I
course,
think
in the Bible, it says,
religion
"Be
there's
still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God.
don't you think in every religion that there's more similarities than there are differences?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
every mystic has always had their revelation in their silence when God or the source of creator for them spoke to them and they had the experience of oneness with all. They've always translated into their own culture, their own religion, because there is no other words. There are no words to explain that awesomeness of that experience. So I think it's an attempt. Our language is always an attempt to create something. So it's like an artifact. It's an experience after the fact. It's an attempt to describe something that can't be described. So our language never really quite does it for the experience that we've had with enlightenment, illumination, satori, or whatever you want to call it, or
Mhm.
flashes of insight, or aha,
Mhm.
um, because we don't have the words, or we only have, well, we have the words of our language to try and express something.
And that's where we get messed up because we like the American Indians, or you call them First Nations, they had a very similar belief in God as Christians do. Very, very similar. And but their ability to communicate was there wasn't any communication, and therefore then we had great strife and misunderstandings. And it
Yeah, I
was
think the fundamental misunderstanding between the white person and the First Nation was clearly is they were already a nation, and therefore, and they also had a connection with Earth or with Mother Earth, that it was a living entity and that nobody owned it.
mhm,
And
very much so.
as a white person, we felt that anybody who wasn't Christian wasn't human, and therefore we could treat them like savages or uncouth, and therefore
Mhm.
we could slaughter, kill, rape, pillage, take their land, and buy their land, which, by the way, wasn't for sale anyway.
Right.
So, you know, ours was indenture and slavery. That's what it was. It was an annihilation of a group of people. And here we are at the crossroads yet again, where if we don't take on those original beliefs that for the First Nation, that all is alive, that everything around you is a living, breathing entity, and we treat it with respect, then most likely Mother Earth will continue on in her evolution, possibly without humans. So what do you think of that? We have a choice. Do we want to be included in the evolution of this planet or not? Because so far, we're doing a very good job of excluding ourselves, right? We're the only animal that fouls its nest, right?
Mm, yeah. And
Anyway,
just everything around it for no
so
reason.
could you
What?
keep it down?
Yeah, I'm out of here. I just
Right.
done the garbage. I'll be
All
out
right.
now.
All right, so that was the cleanup crew in here. Thank you, Sarah. But hopefully it wouldn't happen during the show. But anyway, it did. So we all need to get cleaned up. We all got to get our trash carried out. And of course, that's what the deep clearing is all about. It's clear out the trash, right?
It's true.
And hopefully recycle. Yeah, I saw a show on recycling. It was really quite disturbing that most of the recycling we do just gets burnt as waste or gets sent to sent to a impoverished nation, which then burns it itself, or it just litters the landscape. So really, our whole thing about recycling is just a farce, and how unfortunate that is. I think the important thing to know about plastic is don't, if you can possibly avoid using plastic, please do so. Right? It's
Everything is made of it though. Like my glasses are made of it. The water bottle I'm drinking, my phone,
yeah, I
everything is
know.
plastic. It's like how do you get away from it?
Well, because because if we exercise whatever authority we can by what we purchase, then it will start to change and translate. So for example, one of the biggest waste stream for plastic is in a shopping center, right? Or in a grocery store. And I know that there's places in England that have actually said, no, we will not buy any produce that's in any plastic. And they
Mm.
have actual stores
It is
with no
plastic.
plastic. And that the shoppers begin to appreciate it, right? And they bring their
Mhm.
own bags and cloth bags. And I know with COVID-19, they're saying, well, the bags could be carrying a COVID-19, and some say, well, you can't use them, so we're going to go back to plastic. And some said, well, you can put them in your buggy, but don't touch them, and we can't touch them. You have to load your own. And whatever. The story goes on and on and on. But the point is, if we just did that, those two things, removed all plastic from all the things that we buy,
Mhm.
blister packaging and all that, and all the produce that comes in plastic. And if we stop using plastic bags and plastic straws and plastic spoons and knives and forks and plates, we'd be a really, really far ahead. Because guess what's in the landfill now where everything is? Plastic gloves
But there's
and masks. They're everywhere.
but there's also now bugs that eat plastic. Have you heard of these?
Yeah, there's mushrooms that eat plastic too.
Yeah.
So there's no reason we couldn't do that, right?
Well, I'm just saying that Mother Earth does know how to heal itself.
Yeah, but when you look at the tons of plastic in the middle of the ocean, we got a lot. We got enough food for bugs for a trillion years, right? I mean, it really is a mess.
Maybe in a trillion years, all that plastic will create some kind of a of
But
a
right now, there's so much plastic and
fuel.
small pieces that it's in the shrimp you eat.
Yeah, that I know.
Yeah, plastic is in the fish you eat.
Yeah. I
Plastic is everywhere. You are now eating plastic.
Yeah.
Look,
Oh, and Michael says silence.
yeah. All right, Michael, you be quiet in the back, Harry. All right, so I wanted to talk about one of my favorite authors, and I was to write a book report on this particular person. And maybe Laura, you can pronounce his name because you've been practicing. How do you say
Yeah.
his name?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Elia Chiara. Elia
Gia.
Chiara. She's from Romania, so it's not an easy one. So if we chopped it up a little bit, we apologize
Yeah,
greatly.
we apologize.
Yeah.
I
We're
was to write a book report on his book, but his book was so powerful and so overwhelming that I could, and he suggests it's called The Power of Silence. He suggests not to try and read it from cover to cover, which of course, if you do a book report, you're trying to read it from cover to cover, but just to open it up and read what shows up with you. But I got so lost in the book because it was so profound. I really didn't have any words to write. So in the book report never did get done. But out of that, I got this unique opportunity to know more about this gentleman. So here's what he says about himself. He says, until the age of 55, I never showed any inclination or felt the need to express myself in verse or prose, as it usually happens with more or less famous writers. I was just an ordinary man, conditioned by the education I received in the village where I spent my childhood. My parents were wealthy peasants, provided my intellectual education offered me a good example of honesty and respect towards my fellow beings without any discrimination. My life, as well as theirs, was greatly influenced by the tragedy of this country and events following the Second World War. After a military dictatorship, somewhat justified by the interests of the unification of Romania, we were destined to suffer the most sinister tyranny that ever existed on the face of the earth, namely the communist dictatorship. A small minority of a few hundred communists, many of them foreign, took control of all the institutions of the state with the help of the Soviet tanks. In my quality as a humble employee of such an institution from very beginning, I showed my hostility towards the brutal force that was taking control of my country and under the direct protection of a foreign army. Many other colleagues from my institution, as well as myself, were eventually considered to be potential enemies of the Communist Party. For this reason, we were all declared wanted to be imprisoned in one of the prison camps that started appearing all throughout the country. And if you're wondering why I'm reading this, because history itself is repeating itself, you know. Having been informed in my time, I took refuge in the village of Vartov and Dolj County, where I hid in my parents' house. Through a prophetic dream, I was warned that the secret police would be searching for me in order to arrest me. I left my hideout 2 to 3 minutes before the police arrived. In those moments of maximum tension, I realized, taking into account the nature of the prophetic dreams, that my mysterious destiny would also be knocking on my door, as it operates according to its own laws unknown to us human beings. The time for me to be imprisoned hadn't arrived yet. For the time being, the mystery of life in its external mobility and continuous freshness had something different in store for me. From that memorable day, the 15th of August, 1948, I underwent a severe self-imposed hiding regime in a kitchen attic in semi-darkness. I was 32 years old. What could I have done in those circumstances in a state of complete immobility? In that extremely restricted space, forced to lie horizontally day and night, I had to start thinking about my life, everything I had or hadn't done, endless thoughts, fulfilled or unfulfilled desires, successes or failures, flimsy evaluations, vague hopes, and many regrets. I was sick of it all. Nevertheless, in the rare moment of total silence, something indefinite came in from outside my being, was warning me that a change was in store, that a surprise event would happen. Still, I could not manage to understand with my mind what the hidden mystery was. A few days after I took residence in attic, without any warning, the unpredictable nevertheless happened. It was a beautiful, clear, full moon night. Perfectly conscious and detached from my physical body, I found myself in the courtyard in front of the house, floating a few meters above the ground. I knew that where my body was, and I was perfectly understood the circumstances surrounding the event. At my wish, I started moving by sliding in the air for approximately 40 meters, estimated within the physical plane. Afterwards, I returned to the place where I had been initially, also by sliding, but this time moving backwards. Suddenly, an uncontrollable thought followed by fear ended the whole event. I felt an overwhelming euphoria, such as I had never experienced before. This emotional state of disintegrated the structure of my astral body and returned to the attic where my physical body was lying on the floor as if it were dead. I returned to my body spontaneous and naturally without any intervention on my part. The astral form made of smaller luminous dots. And he goes on to explain. So the point of all this is that by having to be still, of having to lie still in the attic from morning to dawn and not be able to move, he had to go inwardly, had to be in the stillness. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak because he would be, it could be discovered at any moment. So in this silence that was imposed on him, he had to process all of his thoughts, and his ego just got worn out because there was no more, for it to digest. And then into that stillness, he had an out-of-body experience. He had a revelation. He had that aha that we were talking about at the beginning that gets translated by the person, the mystic who has it, into words. And from that, he had this, he had enlightenment. He became illuminated. And the beauty of this is most of those that are illuminated all have some tradition. They've all been to India, or they followed some guru, or they've had some master, or they're in some sort of lineage or whatever. This gentleman never had any of that. He did it all on his own through just the silence, the power of the silence. So he says to read his book by just opening it up. I did open it up and for today and lost the place. So I guess I'm supposed to open it up and see what he has to say to us. Okay, so here goes. So here's what he has to say to us today. He says, See where this starts here. All right. All experiences are a trap. A mental projection pursuing a particular achievement, a certain result anticipated by the thinking process. Psychologically, any expectation has its source in the self. This is all expectations are a trap. Ceaselessly egotistic in every single action. Expectations, therefore, are trapped. They strengthen the known. The ego is always present, enhancing its self-importance. In everything it says or thinks, with each activity, it is fed continuously. The self fortifies its strength. When we start our journey with a purpose in mind, we don't become free of the ego. On the contrary, we give it strength and amplify it. So how many of us, say when we get up in the morning, I got to do my to-do list. I've got to start this journey from where I am, which I'm not happy with, to where I want to go, which will bring me happiness. And then in order to do that, I have a to-do list that I need to do in order to do that. Or I'm looking in the mirror and I'm not the right weight because I really need to lose some weight. So therefore, I'm not happy with what is. So I have to start the journey from where I am this morning to where I want to be. So now we're on this journey because the ego's got us entrapped in that we cannot possibly be happy unless we do this journey. And we haven't finished this journey, so we can't be happy yet because we're only at step 1 or step 2 or step 3. So when we start our journey with a purpose in mind, we don't become free of the ego. On the contrary, we give it strength, we amplify it. This is what we achieve through methods and face more and more burdened by our own powerlessness. So we take away our power because we're on this journey. The climate in the world today demonstrates too well how detrimental is effort and results achieved through thought, right? So we have to, we need to think our way through this, right? We need to have a game plan. Of course, they say that every time you create a plan, God laughs, right? The hope of being transformed has catastrophic effects. There are pitfalls every step of the way. Failure is the norm. Self-knowing is a completely different path. We start from facts by listening and watching. We don't have any goals, only a simple awareness of the reality of life in perfect relaxation. So we just let go. Such a simple, disinterested encounter is through itself action and true fulfillment. The self disintegrates, all traps are shattered, its cunning energies are gradually eliminated. The moment encountered in this manner persistently will finally cause the great event, the shattering of the ego, a state of enlightenment. Through it, man reaches sublime integration. So in that stillness of not trying to pursue anything or become anything or do anything, but in the stillness inside of yourself, being comfortable with you are. Now, being comfortable with what you are means there's a lot of dynamic attention, tension that you would have put into your intention to do something, but you're not doing something. You're being still. So it's sort of like you're gathering the chi inside of yourself because you're not exhausting it by running around or accomplishing the goals or doing or being or becoming. And in that gathering chi or in that gathering energy, it builds within you. And all of a sudden, what we were talking about with that Kundalini rush, it comes up your spine and you have a flash of illumination because in the stillness, this can all happen. So hopefully this makes sense to everybody, that it's the counter of what we think we need to be doing to arrive at our destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes on to say, spiritual becoming as well as the faithful hope of saving their souls as a result of effort and willpower are and will always be true pitfalls with deceitful, misleading effects. If we compare this activity with its results and outcome, the certainty of our statement becomes obvious and undeniable. Can our mind produce radical transformation in itself? To this question, we can answer either by looking within ourselves or by looking around us. The correct answer depends nevertheless on our perfect objectivity. Are we truly objective? Are we honest enough to look within and discover the masks we often resort to in order to hide our inner ugliness? Self-knowing allows no compromise and no excuses. When we put it into practice, we will always start from facts, from what happens here and now.
Have you ever done days of silence?
You mean just being still and being silent?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I ran a youth hostel, and we had 175,000 people through our lives over 7 years. I would take once a year a 40-day retreat and just go live in a cabin by myself, right? Just so I could just be still, right? So a lot of that was in silence, right? The only people that would visit would be to bring the next supply of food for the week. And just being in nature and in the stillness of nature was such a way to recharge your batteries, right?
Hmm. Yeah, huge.
Huge.
Hmm.
So if you get a chance to do a retreat, I know here in this community, there are little retreat cabins that you can rent, and they have their own wood supply. I think you can either bring your own food, or they'll supply you, I think, 2 meals a day, and they just leave you alone, right? And in many ways, our cottage is like that too. You can interact with us as much as you want when you rent the cottage, or you can do it completely on your own. So people come here and write books, come here to do their inner work, come here to overcome their drug addiction or their inner trauma. The silence of nature has incredible healing power.
It is amazing. Hmm.
So there you are. That's what we wanted to talk about, and I really love his work because it's very, very powerful. And he did this all through adversity, right? In the face of adversity, he found inner enlightenment.
Well, I think God brought him to a place where he was forced to do so. And in that, because some people would go mad, right? And just be like, I don't care, just take me away. Being around other people is better than this. And he decided, for whatever reason, to go within and to do, not forced. I don't want to say it was forced. I think it was enveloped, right? In the fact that he had to lay there in stillness and in silence and in his own ability to know that this too shall pass, that eventually this has to stop, right? It could be years, but eventually he would be able to get out and he would be alive and be able to feel the sun on his skin again. But until then, he did self-preservation by going within, and then by going within, he was able to then transcend out, which is where the answers are. That makes sense. At least that's what happened with me. Not in the same manner at all, but um, it's pretty much what happens when you go and you do the inner work, right? You transcend at some point and go outside of self to be able to have the understanding, a greater understanding of what is.
Yeah, I think that for him, he couldn't do. We're so busy in our culture doing or becoming or thinking we need to do in order to succeed. And because he couldn't even move his body, he was left with his thoughts. And that made him process all of his thoughts, right? And it's sort of like he almost went through, because he was doing it for hours and hours. He really, the ego had nothing more that it could say to him. It's sort of like he ran the whole gamut, so that the ego wants to tell you what to do. The ego is always talking to you. It can't shut up. And once the ego actually had nothing more it could say, or there was nothing he could listen to anymore, there was silence. And then in the silence, that God, the mystery, can start to move. It's only in silence can the spirit of the Word of God be heard. And that's where the Word of God came through.
Mhm.
And there was an aha experience. And part of it was an out of body experience too, to realize in the out of body experience that he was more than just the limitations of this body. He, like you said, had to discover that he was bigger than that or greater than that. There was forces beyond himself. He wasn't limited to a third dimensional reality. And
And
then,
we're never really alone. So like even when I'm alone, I can have conversations. I have conversations with my father who has passed on. I have conversations with certain guys will come forward and talk to me. Even in my aloneness, I'm still I'm still surrounded. That makes sense. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I mean, it does have, if you do have, a light team or a group upstairs or on the other side that you work with, it does give you that opportunity to listen to them as well, right? So um, it's interesting because I'm learning how to talk more to my guides because I just get it directly from source, but it may be going through my guides and maybe going, I don't know how I'm getting it. I just have it all knowing, right? So the
Right.
process of the knowing, I know I'm still I'm still trying to discover what that is. Like,
Mhm.
is it a committee? So I've actually created a business a committee. And so I've had my ancestors on it. All the senior Banningons were Joseph, and they were extremely, they're from Philadelphia. Actually, they're from Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
The family was there. Right? My great grandfather was the first millionaire in Providence, Rhode Island, and also a philanthropist. So, it must be in my genes. So why wouldn't I want to? I mean, there's also the negative. He was a union buster too. So I mean, I would like to have the positive aspects of that because obviously he knew what to do because he came from Ireland with just change in his pocket and was able to accomplish that, right? Hopefully he did it with integrity and he did it with honesty, and I think he did. So I'd like to have the positive aspects of that on my business committee, but we're now moving into a new way of showing up in the way we do business. I mean, all sorts of business on planet Earth. So I'd like to be working with Saint Germain, which is the violet light that I was talking about before, because Saint Germain is what you might call the patron saint, or he is the progenitor of the new Earth, the new economy, the new way in which we will do financial interexchange, or the way that we will do abundance in a new way. So I'd like to be able to do the bridging of the old, of how we're doing, into the brand new, which would be Saint Germain. So I'm starting to have a bit of aha who's on my committee or appointments to my business committee. And I got a really interesting a message from a lady who said that there's a soul sister on the other side who wants to talk to me. I have no any idea about who that is or what it is, but it's a star being. So I guess there's, because I'm opening myself up, there's people knocking at the door and saying, hey, we've been waiting for you to ask, and now that you're asking, we can show up. So it's an interesting discussion, and maybe you want to phone in and tell us, who's on your light team, who are you receiving guidance from, or do you need some help and making sure that your light team is all coming from 100% from pure divine light, so there's no tricksters? Are you receiving guidance, or would you like to receive guidance? Would you like to have a clearing to get out of the way so you can receive guidance? What's your experience with stillness is what we're talking about today, ringing a bell in your life. So the lines are open. 1-866-369-7464.
Angela Dumas says the adversity is the karma and what we have signed up for. I don't know. I can't pronounce destiny, the word destiny that she wrote out, but
Say that again. That was a little chunky the way you said it. Could you say it again?
the adversity is the karma and what we have signed up for.
Yeah. So let's get through the karma. And one of the ways to do that is to do the deep clearing. I would say the deep clearing is really getting to the bottom of the barrel and cleaning up the bottom of the barrel. But that's my interpretation. What would you think that that's true for you, that the deep clearing has to do with clearing karma? Here she is. Here's the one and only Angela Dumas. Hello, welcome to the Wellness Show.
Hi. For some reason, as soon as I called in, I'm getting you buffering. I can't see what you're saying. But what I saw Laura say was it's the Prarabdha karma, which is the unchangeable destiny of the body. So if we're getting sick here or whatever we're working out here is that particular karma. We're living it. So I love your show. Thank you. I don't know why what I'm going to have to do is bump out of this.
So what do you do, Angela, to get through karma, or what do you recommend for people on the show? I mean, if karma is your destiny, where does free will come in?
I have changed my view on free will greatly. I used to believe that it was a lot of free will, and I don't really believe that anymore because of what I've seen now with my own eyes. No one could have told it to me, but there is silence, and then there's also mantra silence. Certain mantras have a silence component to them because they cut through the ego and the mind, where the ego and mind cannot connect or hang on to it. That's one thing.
Can I just interrupt and say, interesting enough, in this particular gentleman that we're reading, it was the final stage of first enlightenment, or his aha was when he stopped doing mantras.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, and he may have been finished. What happens is, like, sometimes we finish something in a karmic thing, and suddenly he had to stop. That means he finished them.
Ah,
So
okay.
more than likely, in another lifetime, he had done X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And this time, this is why I say that free will, this is not to scare people, but it's really, really, really allowing everything to be exactly what it is, because we signed up for it. We signed up for every mole and cough and the thing we're doing now. And so for silence, sometimes it's like Gandhi would even, I think on Mondays or whatever, he didn't talk at all on Mondays. He might write a note if he had to, but there'd be no talking. So there's a lot of ways of doing that. Not just going to turn on the TV to go quiet, but to really spend time. And even if someone can't do it right away, take 2 minutes. And then the real thing for me, like, I spent years paralyzed from the neck down myself. I'd been in a coma. And I went in a different direction than he did. He was more enlightened or more evolved than I was at that point in my life. And I did learn techniques and things like that because I had all this crazy stuff happen after I came out of the coma with the knowledge, and I didn't know what it was, and I was just scared, and, but
so what you're saying is we need to burn through the karma, and I guess we have a choice. We could do that on the slow path to enlightenment or the fast path to enlightenment. But what you're saying is we can't avoid it. We can either we can work through it. My friend who's a Buddhist says, you can't change your destiny or your soul path, but you can make it easy or difficult, right?
Correct. And that's where I was just going to say, like, for body issues and physical stuff like that or anything, you can't, the actions, prarabdha karma is also the actions. It's the certain things that we do. That's actually destined. However, when we go into self-inquiry, which can be, that's a kind of thing on itself, but it's really the highest teaching, and to learning how to look inside. You ask a question, look inside. That's something we can talk about another day. But that is really keeping your eye on what's going on instead of you thinking you're the ego and the mind.
Well, isn't that really what he was doing, lying on his back in the attic as he was processing all the stuff that was coming up from the ego, which is basically was karmic, and he just processed it and kept processing and processing it until essentially it burned through it. Yeah, he literally had an inner fire, and then his ego had nothing to say. It had to shut up.
Right, and so he remained this way, right? He remained as such. Is that correct?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, well, then he's clear, and that means that he was going to.
Right.
And this pain is what we sign up for, and then we hate it. We hate it, and we wish it was different. And so it is very difficult to have pain and discomfort in the body. That's very difficult. Emotions and everything else is hard enough. You start adding pain and keeps you really identified with the body. And whatever it is that he did, he kept his eye on the thing to the point that the ego it gave up.
So if you're in a lot of pain, like you are at times, can you step into the pain? Like, can you do like
sure.
into miracle and burn through it faster?
You can, but it doesn't always work, especially the closer you get to God, the closer you get to this oneness, the harder the ego fights and uses stuff against you. It depends on your thing, you know.
Right.
So sure, I mean, I've done many decades, 4 decades of working on myself, working with others, and helping people and helping myself. And then sometimes I'm in this place right now where I think it's a purification aspect. That's what I've been told by a teacher, by 2 teachers of mine, and some other things. And it doesn't work like it used to.
Right.
The mind gets wrapped in when you start doing anything like that on a regular basis. So it's like now I just have to go into being completely surrendered into what is. It's really the fastest way.
Right. Well, I think we can say something positive. I mean, that sounds pretty scary for people on the call that, you know, that you got to do all this, and that, you know, you showed up or put up your hand to come to planet Earth to do all this. But I think it's really safe to say that if you're incarnated on the planet this time, you've done incredible work, even to have the front row seat of what's going on, to be able to experience this planetary change and transformation. So you did something right in the 164,000 plus incarnations you went through, or whatever, you know, eons you went through to get here, to have that front row seat. So now in the front row seat, and you're about to watch the biggest play on planet Earth, you know, how do you want to then interact with it? Do you want to be one of the players out there on the side of light or dark? Do you want to be the observer, the touched observer? You know, what's the ultimate goal? To become enlightened or be a star player? Yeah, so this is our choice, I think, at this unique time. So I just want to give everybody the kudos for at least they did the work to show up here for this grand event that we're in the midst of experiencing.
Yeah, and it is fantastic because we're all here to inspire and help each other on a much greater level than we realize. And those of us who are showing up, like on, you know, people on your call and the people that you work with and Laura works with, you know, we're all here in this collective, not a chain, but like a link of connectivity, just like in the Avatar when they sat under that tree in their root system. That's what we are doing. So it doesn't have to be a scary thing. Some people it is, but whatever we're here for is this amazing thing, and we called on it and came in so we could evolve and help others. That's the overriding thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Each person's thing, that's different. But the overriding thing is where we've chosen this. Other people have come here from other consciousness because of the conflict here in order to rise, because their consciousness level was so high they couldn't learn anymore. They couldn't get higher than they were. So the pain is not a bad thing. We call it that.
Right.
But it's really here for something that, and this is not in any way to blame anyone, like
Right.
it's your fault or you created this.
Oh, you didn't get it right. That's karma, and you're bad, rotten, and wrong, right?
Right. Your karma is you working stuff out for you and with others and with things so you can rise. And that's why you're here listening to Laura and Tyson.
Yeah, and don't forget, the way to do this is really, you can do it on your own, but it can be very lonely and painful. So that's why we encourage you to phone in, have a conversation, meet your tribe, because co-creatively we're bringing about the new world, a new transformation. But it takes us collectively to do this, right? This is not the time where we've all become enlightened on our little lotus flower somewhere in another dimension. This is a full body enlightenment here, and then interacting with each other to bring about a new neural network for planet Earth to help her birth into what she's here to do, which is heaven on earth, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for phoning in. I greatly appreciate it. Out of the silence comes the words of inspiration. So thanks for phoning in. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. The lines are still open. So what's happening in your life? You know, are you all looking for a way to break through? Are you overwhelmed in pain and suffering? Are you saying this is a bunch of hooey? I don't want any of this. Where did I sign up my contract? I want to renegotiate it. This ain't fair. God has made this, you know, whatever. If you want to phone in and have a conversation, please do. The lines are open, 1-866-369-7464. Yeah, the pains of transmutation, transformation, right? Um, there's a series of books out when talking about us as an explorer race, that part of this training in planet Earth is for us to create tension. It says dynamic tension between light and dark is really what is needed in so many different dimensions in their evolution of souls. And if without they have that tension, so imagine if we had a new earth here and it was heaven on earth and everything was lovey and peaceful and everything. But there could be a complacency in which there was very little movement. I mean, hey, I'm looking forward to this, so don't get me wrong. Okay, a little bit of complacency and no movement would be fine. But some worlds or some universes are in that, but they're stuck. So it takes bringing a bit of dark into the light to upset it, to go to up level into another level. So the important thing is that dynamic attention is always what creates the growth. And without the growth, we don't evolve, right? So there's different levels of.
I think that is where we are now. And then we're moving out of that. And once you move out of that, you have a different perspective of things that will change and grow. And I understand what you're saying, and I understand what she was saying. But I have in the way that my understanding is that we can't understand or know what it is that we do not know. So to make comments like that is, to me, is kind of like saying, well, I'm blind, but I know what a sunset looks like. I just don't think that we do. So that's my.
But I don't know what you're referring to in that statement. But anyway,
what I'm referring to is that if you're in a different place in the universe where there's only love, which is what we're aspiring to become, that you need the darkness in order to grow. I don't agree with that.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, that is, you know, if you look at the yin yang symbol, which is the Tao, there's always in the greatest light, there's a seed of darkness.
Yes,
and in the darkness, there's a seed of light. There's always involution, evolution. There's always things to gain for new growth. So, I mean, that's just the way that seems to me the universe to be. If there's a universe that doesn't have that, then that would be interesting. But, you know, and it is all semantics and it is all future projection. We're not even there to even begin to explore that. So having heaven on earth is a great step forward, and universal peace certainly means that we will be able to be admitted into, you know, the Galactic Federation. And who doesn't want to have that? I mean, who doesn't want to have the technology that cleans up this planet from stem to stern, so to speak? So yeah, so I'm not willing to jump into the future that I need some dark in order to bring in the light. I mean, we got a whole new agenda to do to even get into the light in the first place. So I'm with you, Laura.
There we are. There we are. I like to stay in the now present, and the whole thing about silence and why I wanted to talk about it today was because I believe that there's a lot of things that are being done in the world right now that is being done unconsciously and just reactive, rather than sitting in silence and trying to figure out like the greater picture of things. People aren't looking at the greater picture of what could transpire if we actually took some time to think about it. And even in the Black Lives Matter, if they took if the people that were doing this and that were very passionate about it came together and collectively figured some things out, they could get much farther, in my opinion. And I think the people are being very reactive right now. They're being very reactive on the COVID-19. They're reactive in every situation instead of sitting silent. There's no silence in our world.
No,
Like they
but
said,
then that's the whole
going on.
intention. I mean, that's the whole intention of the establishment is to keep, you have to be at war. If you don't have people stirred up, they will be in silence and they'll remember who they are. So we have to keep you from going from crisis to crisis to crisis.
Yes.
And if you settle down, we have to do another false flag event to get you all stirred up and riled up to take a side, a pro or con, so you can't see the greater picture. So I agree with you. It says in the Bible, it says in Proverbs 17, verse 28, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. Right?
There's
Say that again. Even a fool
balance in it.
yeah, but it says even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise because the wisdom comes from the silence, not from your intellect. Okay, when he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent because he's listening to the still voice inside of himself. And one more, Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15, in quietness and in trust shall be your strength.
Well, and how do we, that's the one thing that I want to talk about is how does one come to the ability to sit quietly for a while and actually contemplate? I had a friend that every Sunday night he would say, okay, I'm going to go lay down, and he would play music for a little while. He would relax, and then he would lay in contemplation about his entire week, about his life, what it was, where his goals were. And I thought that was very that was amazing. But now I meet like Eliezer, and he does Shabbat, and they do it. The Jewish community does it where they're in silence and they don't do much for a 24-hour period. And I've tried that, and the brilliance that came out of that the short time that I did it, which was from 6 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next morning, because I had a client that came in, was amazing. And that was just a short period of time of turning off all electronics and just going within and reading and contemplating and being very purposeful in silence. How can we teach people how to do this so that they can then experience not nirvana or anything? When that's not what we're asking, but just to be able to make common sense decisions in this world.
Well, I think, one of the things is a good beginning is the Dowsing 101 course that I'm about to teach on Friday. And you think, well, what the heck does that have to do with it? Because when you still the mind enough to ask a question from your higher self, you're teaching the mind that it's not in charge, right? That the mind can ask a question, but the answer comes from the stillness of being connected to source. So that's the first step, is to learn the difference between the mind that wants to tell you instantaneously what the answer is and how to get to stillness with saying using a pendulum or a dowsing rod to get the answer from source. This is starting to do the training wheels or guidance on demand. So I see it as stepping stones. So this Friday we'll begin that journey, right? And to help you along that path so that you can be more and more in stillness. You can, so that you know that there's a choice. Do you want to come from the chatter of your human mind consciousness that your ego's telling you what it needs to do based on all the evidence that it has from all past lives, this life, and all of this karma and all of its suffering? Or do you want to be still and have the voice of God come through? So the choice is always yours in every moment. So I want to teach you that you have a choice. So that's a great question. Hopefully my answer, Laura, gives you the idea of our stepping stones that we can take people on. So
and prayer is a good way of doing it too, right? Just by going into prayer for every day, for, let's say you give yourself 20 minutes every day, and if it's prayer or meditation, however you want to look at it, but to take some time just to be silent. No TV, no radio, no, like, I don't even like when people say, oh, I like to do guided meditation. Well, then you're still listening to something else. Listen to self. Go within self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that you can also do
Cool.
certain vibrational frequencies of listening to a tape, which will, or a video, which will at the, I can't remember the name, how to pronounce it, self-figural vibrational frequencies that are in harmony universally.
Oh,
So that will calm you down and
yeah,
put you into the alpha state.
Reggie.
So that you can. I know we're at the top of the hour. I just wanted to say, if you want to experience the power of a group that listens to the field, which is another way of saying listens to the silence within, join us on the Earth Heart, Radical Earth Heart Resonance show tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Shelley Darling and I are co-hosting. It's a wonderful group. Actually, we're going to be doing work this one, so it's actually a working session. We're working on a property that has an intentional community on, and we're clearing it. So if you want to learn how to do clear geopathic stress and work as a group, part of the Sacred Evolutionary Dowsing Consortium, we'll be doing the second session on that. So if you'd like to come and join us, and to find the link, you head over to the Good of the Whole. Just put it into Google, the Good of the Whole, and it will give you the Zoom link and the password. Come learn how to work with us collectively, and what it is to be in silence in a group, or be of one mind, and allow that we call it the field, to be informed by the field. So come and join us this evening, and don't forget, join us on Friday.
7 p.m. Central Time, just so the people in my area know. It's
And
5
that would
o'clock.
be 8 p.m. on Eastern, right?
Yeah, 5 o'clock Mountain Pacific, or Pacific.
All right. So hopefully we see you tonight. It really is a great group to sit with. It'll be Charlie Riverman, myself, and Shelley Darling, and a group that's reading over this particular one property that we're doing some healing of the land and healing of the people. So if that interests you, come and join us. And until then, be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And tomorrow, it's the attitude of gratitude is the topic tomorrow.
My favorite.
We will be doing, the attitude of gratitude and the peace process will be what we're focusing on.
Good.
See you tomorrow.
Appreciation. Appreciate you, Tyson. See you tomorrow.
Bye for now.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.